Okay, hold on. So, number one, by the way, test is Friday. Number one, the area of a square garden, so square. So that should immediately make you draw a square. The area of a garden, square garden, is 52 square feet. Which value below is the best estimate of the side length? Okay, so if the area is 52, then side length. So to find the side length, this is the area. You got to square root it. Okay, so it's not a perfect square, so let's see what it is. I'm going to use my calculator, and you should press 52 shift x squared, okay? And that's about 7.2 feet. Okay, which value below is the best estimate? It's going to be 7 feet, which makes sense because 7 squared is 49, and that's the closest to 52. Okay, let's go to number two. Which set of numbers contains only rational numbers? Okay, well that goes back to our notebook if you look at rational versus irrational, remember? So let's take a look at root 12. That's not rational because 12 is not a perfect square, and you can double check it. If you square root it, it's this long, non-repeating, non-terminating decimal. So because that's not rational, then we're not going to pick A because it already makes this whole set like it doesn't count. Okay, so let's try B. Now B, we have a 9.99 terminating, so that's rational. 1 over 3, that's the fraction of two integers. And if you want to check the decimal version of it, it's 0.3 repeating, so that's fine. -4 integer, that's rational. 12 is rational. This is a terminating decimal, that's rational. Oh, sorry. It's a scientific number. Scientific numbers are rational, okay? So, and then you have a negative root 16. Now, 16 is a perfect square, so if you take the square root of 16, okay, you should know that, oops, it's going to be 4. And it's a -4, which is fine. That's actually the same as that. So these are all rational. Now, there's actually more than one possible answer, I believe. So let's double check. This one says cube root of 9. Remember, to take the cube root of 9, you press 9, and then you have to press shift and then plus minus, cube root. Now that is not rational. So automatically that's out. But let's see if D is possibly. Cube root of 27. Yeah, that should be because 3 times 3, so that's rational. -8 is rational. All scientific numbers are rational. All fractions, as long as there's not a, what's it called? An imperfect, not, a radical that doesn't have a perfect square. So this is an integer, and integer, when you divide integers, still good. So you can check the decimal, it's a repeating decimal. So this is also. So it says which sets, okay, so that was a clue for our particular study guide that there's 2 possible answers. Number 3, which shows how to find the value of x in the equation. Now this is a little bit tricky, okay? So let's think about this. We haven't talked about this much, so we'll probably need to talk about it in class, but use this as an opportunity to learn. So if you notice here, you're taking the cube root of x, okay? Oh yeah, so this is actually a typo. Okay, so this should be a 6. I'm sorry, I didn't notice that. So when you take the cube root of x and you want to do the inverse operation of that, you actually have to cube it, which means whatever you do to one side, you do to the other side. So the cube root and the cube cancel, and you get x equals 6 cubed. So the answer is C. We'll talk more about that one in class, but you know, if you can, just go back over what I just said and see if you can really understand it. Okay. Number 4, what is the decimal equivalency of 6 over 9? Don't let that freak you out. You just need to look at, well, what's the decimal equivalency? Well, all you got to do is divide. So we got to see which one of these matches that. So I'm just going to take 6 divided by 9 and see what it happens to be. It's 0.6 repeating. So it's not this because it terminates. This one also terminates, so it's not that. And this one is 0.69. That can't be it. It's 0.6 repeating, so C. That's like super easy, okay? Another one of those questions. Now, if you weren't sure how to do number 4, but now you think you could do 5, do it now, pause the video, and see if you can figure it out before I tell you the answer. So 52 divided by 99 is 0.52, 0.52, 0.52. It's repeating. So Here, terminate, terminate, so it's not these. This one shows like, okay, we don't know if it's repeating. If there's a definite repetition in your calculator, then go ahead and assume that it's repeating. So A is the correct answer. All right, let's go to number 6. Which two numbers below are equivalent in value? Well, you can go a couple of routes. I would probably just look at the decimal value. So let's take 216 and cube root it, so shift plus minus. That's just a 6. Okay, so you have a 6 here. Now, square root of 18 doesn't mean 18 divided by 2. It means like square root it. So 18 shift x squared. Now, that's 4.24 dot dot dot. Are these equivalent? No, they're not the same value. So scratch that one. Cube root of 27. Okay, hopefully you know that that's 3, but let's double check. Yeah, that's a 3. What's the square root of 9? That's also 3. You can also say technically 3 and negative 3, but let's see what these come out to be. Okay, so I'm going to just leave B, B as a possibility. C, cube root of 125, all right, 125, shift plus minus, that's a 5. And then don't think square root of 10 is, 10 divided by 2. Like literally you need to root it. So 10 square root, that's going to be 3.16. These are not equivalent. Okay, so that's out for sure. Now let's try cube root of 27. So 27 cube root, that's 3. How about square root of 81? Hopefully you know that's 9, but let's double check. 9. These are not equivalent. So the best answer choice is B. Number 7, which of the following is closest to point B on the number line? Okay, so you've got all these different options, and you can see this looks like B is like really close to 2.5, so it's probably like 2.4 something. Let's see which one gives us that. Now this one, when you have a mixed number, you guys should know how to change it to an improper fraction. So there's a couple of ways to do this, but I'm going to go ahead and put 9 times 2 is 18, plus 2 is 20 over 9. So if you take 20 and divide by 9, you get 2.2 repeating. That doesn't look like B, okay, because B looks like it's more like 2.4, but we'll see. How do you do 220%? Well, percent, think about this, okay, percent. If you see this root right here, do you guys know the word century? That's 100 years. Like if you say, man, that person's lived a century, or we haven't seen that in a century, that's 100. And you see that has the same root. So you're going to take this 220 and you're going to divide it, you're going to make it a fraction over 100. So if I divide that, 220 divided by 100, that's a 2.2 without repeating. So that's still not a good approximation for B. Now let's take 5 square root. So 5 square root, that's 2.24. Well, 2.23 dot dot dot. Still doesn't seem high enough. Let's see square root of 6. 6 square root, now that looks better. 2.44. Okay, so we're going to pick D. That's the best, that's the closest to point B. So you should really check each one of these. Like literally check each one, because you might find that one is even a little bit closer. Okay, so be very, 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 very careful. It's an easy, easy problem if you're willing to do a little bit of work. Which of the following is closest to point Z on the number line? Okay, now here, if you look, it's between 4 and 4.5, but closer to 4.5. So maybe 4.3, 4.4. Let's see what happens. Okay, so let's see what the decimal approximation for square root of 18 is. 18 square root, 4.24, kind of small. Now, if you remember from the old video, or not old video, but the last problem, see if you guys could figure this out. Pause the video here and see if you can figure out what the decimal equivalent is. So, 410 divided by 100, remember, it could be written like this. It's 4.1, too small, so it's definitely not that. That's too small, but again, I'm going to check everything. So square root of 17, 17 square root, 4.1, still small. Now let's see, this one, let's change into an improper fraction. So 4 times 3 is 12, plus 2 is 14 over 3. So let's see what that is. 14 divided by 3. Uh-oh, that's too small. Uh-oh, hold on. This might be a typo. 14 divided by 3. Oh dear. Okay, that's too small. Okay, well then, guys, I guess our best answer choice, our best estimate will have to be 8A. I mean, if these are the only choices given to us, I feel like it should be more like 4.3, but hey, these are our choices, so 8A is the best choice. Because 14 over 3 comes out to be 4.6 repeating, and that is too big. Number 9, which of the following best describes an irrational number? A number that is a square root? No, because a square root of a 36 is rational because it's perfect square. A number less than 0? No, you could have negative numbers that are rational. A number that cannot be approximated by a decimal. No, it can be approximated by decimal. That's how we figure out what they are. So no, decimal is fine. So why is it A? A number that cannot be written as the ratio of two integers. That's literally the definition of irrational. Like if you think of the world of integers, which is like -4, ... -3, -2, -1, 0, 1. So the like decimals, you can take any of these and make fractions out of them. Like let's say I'll make a fraction out of these two, okay? Then that's still rational. But irrational numbers are numbers where you can't do that with any integer. There's nothing that comes close, so A is correct. And notice it's for irrational. Now, number 10, which of the following best describes a rational number? Okay, a number that is a square root, a number that can be written as a ratio. Okay, it can be less than 0, but it's not limited to that only. Okay, a number that is a square root, yeah, but it doesn't have to be. A number that can be approximated by a decimal, yeah, but that's not the strictest definition. Okay, so these kind of go together. Number 11, to the nearest tenth. Now, when we say tenth, hopefully this is something you remember. Like if you think about placement value, okay, where the decimal is, here, this is the tenths place. Okay, this is the hundredths place. Okay, this is the thousandths. You could always look this up. Thousands, and like here, this is your ones, and this is your tens. So the nearest tenth, so we're going to round to the nearest tenth. Which is the best estimate of the value of 3 root 8? Remember how we did that in our calculator? Do the root 8 first. So 8 square root. All right, it's some irrational number, then multiply it by 3, because in here it's a multiplication. So times 3. So we get 8.485 ... Now, which one of these digits are in the 10th place? This one is. So if we're going to round to the nearest tenth, okay, the 8 tells you to tells the 4 to go up. Oh, dang it. All right. Well, it should be 8.5. And this is a typo, but D is definitely the best answer choice. These are not even close. Okay. Number 12. To the nearest tenth, once again, which is the best estimate of the value of -2 root 5? Well, once again, let's do the root 5 first. 5 square root. So you got some irrational number. Multiply that. Remember, here is a negative or multiplication times 2 negative equals -4. Okay, so we get -4.472 ... We're going to round to the nearest tenth. That 7 tells the 4 to go up. And in this case, yep, we pick -4.5.